Some of these have to do with data quality. Is that okay just to go ahead and ask those now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you said too short description. You don't want to tell us how short a too short description is? Is that right?
Maybe these guys can address it better than I can, but there's a suggested length for the description, and I think it's 250 or maybe 500 characters. And I think descriptions less than that length will be accepted sometimes, but too short is sort of like it's not a well-defined notion. It's something that our parser and validation methods will actually determine on their own whether it's too short or not, whether you're doing a good enough job describing it. But again, I probably can't speak to that as well as these guys. Do you guys have anything to add?
I mean, I agree with what you said. So I think too short description is definitely a recommendation. We obviously don't want people to. The reason that it's not a hard and fast rule is because we also don't want to encourage people to, put stuff in there that is not actually relevant to the product. So it's really just a way to say, hey, we believe that robust descriptions, long descriptions, are a benefit to users when they're looking at a product or searching for a product. And they also help us understand better what the product is. So there is no specific hard and fast line where we'd say this is too short and it's going to be negatively affected. It's more, again, just trying to make merchants understand that the better descriptions they give, the better we can understand that data and make it more relevant to users.
Right. I'm just asking because I want to validate, right? So it's easy for me just to have some sort of minimum, and I can just say, if it's less than 250, that they need to supply more information.
Yeah. So for that, I'd say that's right what you just said there. Try to make it, but again, we really don't want just like a bunch of unnecessary data thrown in just for the sake of throwing in unnecessary data.
Right.
Yeah, so if they can make the 250, that's great. If not, you got to take it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. Should I go to number 2?
Sure, and then we can...
Okay, so isDraft. I thought in the old days if you uploaded isDraft true, it would load a deactivated product.
So this API, maybe you're talking about base API. This API has only been around since December of 2010, so it's barely over a year old. I've only been on the team since August of 2011. I've never ever come across, so isDraft in the .NET library corresponds to the app draft, the app draft element from the app XML namespace, and that, as far as I know, has never been a part of this API. So you can send it, we'll parse it and return it, but we don't do anything with it. You want to use availability for that, and availability is actually one of the required elements. So.
It is in, just so you know, it is in the .NET Client library, so I can set... Okay.
It is because, when you write software for so many different things that share namespaces and share different utilities, we want to write as little duplicate code as possible, right? So that's in one of the parent classes, but it isn't necessary for you to use. There are some other things in those parent classes that use part of the app namespace or the batch namespace, or parts we just don't use for this API.
So if I load something as available out of stock, will it load deactivated and then it will not go to review immediately?
I'm not 100% sure on that. Do you guys know, Chris or Raf? Does out of stock make it deactivated?
I'm not 100% sure on that either. I'll need to.
So I don't think out of stock deactivates it. If you set an expiration date that's already occurred, that'll deactivate it.
Thank you.
Obviously, if you send a delete, that will delete it. But if you want to keep certain things around, like ranking and stuff like that, I don't know exactly how that works, but I do know they're different. I can get a more detailed answer for you on that. I'm not entirely sure what out of stock does. But let's hear the full details of Andrew's question now. So Andrew, the guys on my far left, I don't know if they're on your left, are Chris and Raf. They're here with Ops. Chris deals mostly with data quality and things of that sort in the U.S., and Raf is in EMEA. So hopefully these guys will be able to be on point and get exactly what you need. So let's hear it.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, good. Sorry, this is my first try with this Hangout thing. The questions I have are about best practices for international sites, languages, things like that. We have Zazzle, which is the company I work for, has sites, around the world and lots of different levels of quality of content for those sites. So, for example, we have a lot of really good English content in Canada. We have some really good French content in Canada. I know that the shopping API doesn't place any limitations on what, there's not an explicit limitation on what languages you can send to what countries, but I'm wondering if there's something in the back end that stops that, or if there's a best practices, or should we not ever send English to Japan? What do you guys think about all that?
So we do have rules for each country on which languages are supported. So for Japan, it would be Japanese. We wouldn't want the English language items in Japan.
Okay. That will just be stopped by the API, or they'll get rejected, or what? What's the?
I don't know if it'll stop it or reject it. Daniel, I don't know if you know.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can find out for you.
Okay.
But it may be something that gets flagged during the processing of the content when you start to index it. And I know we are all focused on this right now. So in EMEA, we are seeing people submitting German to the UK, and we know we feel that this is not a great user experience. If you're searching on product shopping UK, you probably don't want to see German content.
Well, I mean, presumably that Google knows what language you're interested in when you're doing the search. So as long as you set the right language, it seems like that would be okay. Google would just filter it out for the people who they don't think speak German.
Yeah, so unfortunately it's not that sophisticated. So if you target a specific country with the content, it will show in that country.
Okay.
So what we're doing now is the focus is on preventing, it's like it's the UK. We're focused on preventing language that is not in English from showing up in the UK. So when you're submitting the content via the API, are you actually specifying the language that it is?
Yeah, well, I mean, right now we're not. That's why we specify the language, but we're only sending one language to each country, which means that we miss out on Canadian French and most of our purchases in the Netherlands, weirdly, not in Dutch, in English. So it's unclear to me whether, I could provide a better experience to people in NL by submitting both some Dutch products and some English products, as long as I flag them with the right language, which is part of the content for shopping API. You have to specify the language.
So I think there's two things here. I think it's my understanding, and maybe, I don't know, either Daniel or I can look into this, but I have a feeling that if you set the language to English and NL, it won't appear. We'll see that as not that's not something that should be indexed, or that's not something that should be returned for search queries on that property, and so it just wouldn't appear. And then if you were to set it to the language, you set the language to the language of the country you're targeting, but it wasn't that language, then that would be considered the data file.
Right, obviously.
Right. So I think, and I'm not up to speed on exactly what our plans are for supporting multiple languages in different markets, but as far as I know, we're not currently doing any market right now. Like, for example, we're not even launched in Canada, so I'm imagining you're submitting for product listing ads in Canada?
Yeah, and Google Affiliate Network. So, and actually, there's another one too. But yeah, they're all through the same API. So.
Right, and so actually. So it then starts to get a little bit more complex when we take product listing ads into the question. So then it's also how they want to display this and how the data is useful to them. So it's possible if you were to submit to country Canada, language French, that even though product search wouldn't show it, well, we obviously wouldn't show it in Canada because we're not launched there. But it's possible that ads might be able to do something different. or the affiliate network might be able to use it for that. So that's also part of AI for me then to follow up on if they have any use for content that's submitted that way.
Okay, well that's
Does that
good.
make sense?
Yeah, I didn't realize you guys hadn't, like, I don't know, started to surface things by language from Google product. I kind of went on Google and I worked with one of our Dutch speakers and we did some searches in English and the stuff came back in English, and we did some searches in Dutch and it came back in Dutch, and I was like, sweet, that's Google, but
Yeah.
I guess it's a little bit different for products, so.
Yeah, it's a little different, and so I mean, our first focus is just getting it, getting the predominant language experience correct, and then see if it makes sense to have additional languages supported for each country. I haven't made it to that stage yet, so.
Okay. I think that probably answers my question. I actually had a question to follow up the question that was previously asked by, I'm sorry I didn't catch the name of the previous questioner, but Daniel mentioned that if you delete the product, it clears it out of the system, including ratings and things. Is that?
So I'm not 100% how that works, but I think in many cases, if you'd like to deactivate a product, but you know it's coming back, it can be more beneficial for you to set the expiration date to a date that's already passed, or deactivate it in that fashion, rather than to explicitly delete the product. But
yeah, it's unclear if I can tell if it's going to come back or not. It's like some stuff becomes unpopular and then becomes popular again, and some stuff becomes.
Right.
So we usually just do deletes, which helps us keep under the quotas and things like that. So.
Yeah.
But I was worried that, like, maybe the Christmas stuff, which probably gets deleted in the middle of the year because nobody's looking at it,
Right.
nobody's buying it, you know, does that stuff then?
So once an item is deactivated, it gets purged eventually, but there's no guarantees on how quickly or how slowly that purging will take. So I imagine if you deactivate it in May, by November it's gone.
Okay.
But I'm not
I was
100%.
more, yeah. So that, I guess that kind of answers my question. I was just hoping, like, that maybe Google was keeping around, like, this is a good product, or people click on this product or something, and then when it comes back with the same ID later, they're like, sweet, let's put it back up.
First, I don't know if that's true, and second, I don't think I could comment on it if I did know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we could do an experiment. I understand that you're launching statistics on products. I haven't been able to get those back. I guess I could delete a product and look if the statistics get deleted after a few days when I put the product back in.
So I'm not sure if you're talking about the performance or if you're talking about data quality. Yeah. So that's been launched, I don't know, several months. I don't know, 8-9 months.
Yeah. For some reason, I always get zeros whenever I ask for it, even when it shows. Even when they show numbers on the UI, which is sort of strange.
That sounds like a bug.
Well, okay, I'll try it again.
Like a bug on our part. If you encounter it again, let me know. Post to the forum or do on the code.google.com/p/shopping APIs list and report it, because they should be the same. But that I guess that would be an experiment that may reveal something.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'll mute myself so I don't echo now.
Cool.
And I would reiterate that if the item does come back, to continue to use the same offer ID for the item.
Yeah, for sure. So, Luke, you said you had some more questions?
Yeah, I'll follow up on what he just said. With regard to the performance data, I didn't get impressions information in those data points.
Yeah.
Okay, that's coming?
I don't know that it's coming. I haven't brought it up with the team yet. It doesn't seem like it'd be too difficult to do, but I wasn't around when the original feature was launched. I don't know why it's not included, because clicks and impressions sort of go side by side.
Right.
But that's on my to-do list of something to follow up with.
Okay, cool.
I agree with you. That's good data to have, but I don't know how available it is or how easy it is to implement. So.
Okay. Sale price and sale price effective date. They're not in the .NET Client library, at least not version 1.9. So.
Sounds like a bug.
Oh, really?
Cool.
Oh, okay.
I will get those in there.
Okay.
Yeah, that one. The guy who was on the content API before me didn't do C#.NET and didn't really ever touch it. He just kind of asked for help from other people who didn't know the content API, and I was the same. Didn't know C#, didn't know .NET, but I've started to actually look at the library and try to understand some stuff. So it's a little different situation, but every once in a while I'll come across an attribute that isn't in there that should be, and that's just some sort of oversight from somebody less familiar with the API itself. But
okay.
I will get those in there if they're not. And I assume if I get them in the library and there's no release, you can build everything locally, right? You're good doing that. With something this complex and this big, we're not just going to do a release for 15 lines of code, right?
Right.
So, all right, that's good. Sounds like that was the last two questions you had. John, do you have any questions?
No direct questions.
Okay.
Actually, I can include one. It's really about the exception process. Okay, we host many shops. Okay, and some of our shops don't have brands and the mandatory fields, the unique IDs. And I know that the customer services have to do a manual exception process. It'd be good if we had an API to do that, so we can automate it. So I guess I just need to put in a sort of like a change request, I guess, or a feature request.
Whose customer service? Our customer service?
No, our company's customer service.
Okay.
So sorry, what happens is that we host shops. A shop will register. Okay, they won't put the unique IDs in, so we don't upload any products. Instead, we give them an alert to say we can't upload these, which you need a unique ID. They come back to say, well, we make artificial flowers, or we make this, or we make that. Okay, we then apply for an exemption manually through your exemption process. Okay, and we manually then upload. Sorry, we then set a flag and the product's uploaded. Well, customer services would like all that automated.
Okay.
So I guess I need to put that in as a feature request.
Yeah, if you want to email me or ping the forum or I guess just put it right on Shopping API's issues list, especially the form where you're actually filing for the exemptions would be helpful because I'm not 100% familiar with that process since it is.
Sure. Yeah. I must confess I'm not familiar with the process.
Okay.
Customer people deal with that, but I know that the regular meetings they bring it up that they spend a lot of time doing this. Because what I try to do is make sure that no data is uploaded via the API unless it's valid and contains all the necessary mandatory fields.
Right.
So we actually stop it at that point.
Okay.
All right, Daniel. Anyway, thanks very much.
Sure.
So in terms of the process, that's a relatively good understanding of the process. So if the content is missing the unique identifiers, we would flag that, and then there is an exemption process that merchants can say, oh yeah, we sell handmade flowers or artificial flowers, and then our team reviews the content and exempts the account from using these unique identifiers if that's the case.
So you mean a unique identifier like a G10?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna ping you off this with a question that I don't know if is appropriate, but.
Yeah, they're exactly the fields we look for. They've got to have a GTIN, they've got to have a brand. I think there's several other fields, okay, that they've got to have, and we make sure that our shops have completed those. And if they haven't, then we stop the product from being uploaded until those fields have been filled in.
And Chris, do you know? Is there a way to include like made to or handmade or something like that in the GTIN, or is that something that really it just has to go through this formal process currently?
So there is not a way to do that. We're looking at so our team is sort of looking at this and seeing how we can make it more efficient.
Okay.
But we don't have the ability to say, oh, these are custom products, so so you don't need to flag these at this point.
Right. And I'm sure, John, there's some level of human validation that's going on that it may be hard to take away from the process because of, things like spam and such that may want to, I don't know, circumvent the review process programmatically. But I don't know off the top of my head. It's certainly a complex issue.
Yeah, certainly. I'm not expecting an instant response. The
Sure.
API I imagine would work is
Sure.
we'd say we apply for an exception, then a couple of days later, after you've validated the site and
Sure.
looked and done all your checks, you would then come back and maybe we get some sort of automated request back. So I'm not suggesting an instantaneous
Sure.
exemption process. I'm more saying that taking the manual process out because it becomes kind of almost zero touch.
Sure.
Kind of.
Sure.
Instantly, can I ask you a quick question about GTIN and about validation? At the moment, we kind of just pass that through. Again, have you got any recommendations on any vetting that we should apply? I know GTIN is so open-ended, okay, because obviously what I'm keen to do is try and validate data before we upload it.
Sure.
Okay. And
I have no clue, so I will defer to Chris and Raph.
I don't have anything specific right now.
Yeah.
I actually would need to review all the GTIN requirements. It's not something I've looked at recently. So.
Well, do you know if there are external services or places even within Google where we have, like some official listing, some sort of thing that you could check against to do, vetting, like John says?
Well, is there specific attributes? Is there specific values that you are interested in knowing? I think brand, we don't have anything. UPC, I think we do just the there's a simple digit check. Is there a right amount of digits, and then we do the check digit. When you add these numbers, I forget exactly how it works, but when you add these numbers, does the last digit, do they all add up to the last? It's called check digit. I would need to look into it, but we do that sort of checking, but not all UPCs actually
follow to that.
Yeah. But so beyond that, I don't know if there's anything more that you could do. Just making sure. I think UPC is the easiest one to sort of validate that it's at least in the correct format.
Mm-hmm.
okay.
And then the rest we do really internally. It's not something we can do during processing or the initial feed processing. We do it much more internally. Once we get the data, we start to sort of sift over it and understand what these products are, and that's when we start to do some of the additional validation on the unique identifiers.
Yep.
And that I think would be hard for you to do.
Through the API, yeah.
Okay, thanks very much.
Sure.
That's good.
So does anybody else have questions?
Well, Danny, I wanted to ask about the multi-client account and setting business information and customer service information through the app. Is that something that's coming up like in the future?
That's another one of those that I need to talk to the team about. There are definitely gaps there that I think should be fixed, but I don't know what the resources are to get them fixed or how difficult it would be to fix them. But I will certainly drive that forward because I went through the process on the Merchant Center UI, and it does seem sort of counterintuitive that you wouldn't be able to do that through the API as well.
Yeah, I like the idea of my own customers being able to, it's completely automated on my side when their account is set up. Well, I could also set up, their sub-account automatically if I could just kind of fill that information in, and then, of course, the shipping and tax I'm going to have to contact them on.
Right.
Because we're going to have to look at their Google checkout account and then make sure those two sets match. But at least that block would be cool to add.
Yeah, for sure. And that's another big request has been setting account level tax and shipping through the API, which currently isn't available either. And it's something we may get done this quarter. This last quarter we had, I think, 3 or 4 launches. So like maintenance requests like these were sort of secondary, right? And this quarter I don't know that we're going to have as many launches. I don't know if you guys have gotten to use any of those features from last quarter, but there's a pretty cool feature, the API dashboard within the Merchant Center. It'll actually show you every type of error you have, the number of occurrences of that error, and then also it'll give you example requests, and the example response error returned to it. It's really neat if you have.
I love that feature.
Awesome! It's great to hear we have some happy users. It's actually getting better. I don't know when it's launching, but we're writing up a blog post, or we're writing up some more documentation about it. But you'll actually be able to replay requests from the Merchant Center. So you can change a little bit of text, run it in dry run mode, and see if it works. So you can actually, maybe not as relevant to you, Andrew, since you're super technical, but for some other people who are still fudging around trying to make requests work, they can actually change requests in the Merchant Center UI and fiddle around until they can actually make them work. It's going to be super neat.
We had a character encoding issue that was caused by some data that got changed in the database, and I was like, oh, I don't know, what, I didn't do anything. What happened? So, but the API dashboard was just like, this is what's wrong, and I looked at it, and I was so excited.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. But anyway, Luke, not to derail from your question too much, I'm certainly going to be pushing these through, and it'll probably be in the next week or two once I get these developer guides launched. And I know that's something you want as well, the feature parity with the other languages and being able to do everything you want to with the .NET library and things like that. And it's something I'm concentrating on with most of my time right now. But I will.
I'm glad to hear that Google is pro Microsoft.
Well, no, it's pro developer, and there's a strong .NET community, so that's my job, right? Make you happy. And C# isn't so bad, I guess. I'm a Python guy, and I miss private variables, and I miss functions with more than one signature and things like that.
It's so easy in our languages, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I prefer duck typing still, but that's me. But it's refreshing every once in a while. Compiled languages, I don't know. Computers are pretty powerful these days. I don't know how long compiled languages will be around. Probably for a while, given
Daniel, you have to order a Raspberry Pi.
What's that?
You have to order a Raspberry Pi.
Why is that?
Oh yeah, have you heard of the Raspberry Pi?
No. Okay. Is it a Python joke?
No, it's a $20 computer.
I got you.
Python, it runs Linux, but they're aiming it for an educational tool, and they're pushing Python. So you need to order your Raspberry Pi.
For $20, why not, right?
Yeah, just Google it. Google Raspberry Pi.
Okay, I'll Google it.
That's P-I, by the way, as opposed to P-I. Incidentally, Daniel, can I just say, actually, that really bit of good feedback. Actually, we've had API for several months, okay, and it's working beautifully. Every day it sends up its updates and things, and it just works. So I know through the forums, there's lots of people questioning things and challenging you with difficult questions and everything. But we found the interface works great.
That's awesome. Thanks for the feedback. Yeah, we try to make sure there's uptime all the time across all Google services, and I think it is pretty refreshing, especially given some of the more fledgling services, some of the issues you can have. So, Luke, if you do have specific questions on use of the client library, let me know. I'll make an announcement tomorrow or maybe even later today. We'll do another one exactly 2 weeks from today, so April 32nd, a.k.a. May 2nd. And I guess I'll see you guys then. It will be at 10 Eastern, which, what's the UK's +8, I believe, so that is...
10 Pacific.
10 Pacific. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, it will be at 10 Pacific, which I believe is 6 p.m. in the UK. Yeah, John?
Yeah, that's correct. It's 6:36 in UK at the moment.
Great. Cool. So thanks, everyone. Thanks especially to Chris and Raph for showing up. And we'll try to get back and post to the forum with the questions that we couldn't answer to your satisfaction. All right?
Cool. Okay. See you later.
Yeah.
See you guys. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.